Life will test you. That is not a warning. That is a certainty. There will be insults. There will be loss. There will be days when the world seems set against your peace of mind. The Stoics knew this. They built their philosophy not in theory, but in reality, in the dirt, in the storms, in the struggles of daily life. Their goal was not to escape the world. Their goal was to move through it untouched. To be untouched does not mean to be unfeeling. It means to be stable. It means to respond, not react. It means to remain clear, strong, and self-directed in all conditions. The Stoics trained themselves to remain firm when the ground shakes. They studied the inner life so they could walk through the outer life without being consumed by it. In this video, we will explore 6 ways to stay untouched. 6 disciplines that can protect your mind, guide your actions, and strengthen your soul. These are not abstract ideas. These are tools. They are exercises. They are choices. Each chapter will focus on one principle, showing how the Stoics applied it and how we can apply it today. This is a path. This is training. And it begins now. Chapter 1. Control what you let in. The Stoics believed that the mind is a gate. What enters is not random. It is allowed or denied by attention. What affects you most is what you allow in. What you replay in your mind, what you dwell on, becomes your experience. The first way to stay untouched is to guard the entry. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." He taught that nothing can disturb you without your consent. That consent begins in thought. When an insult arrives, you must decide if it will stay. When doubt rises, you must decide if it will rule. You cannot control what others say. You cannot control every condition, but you can choose what you focus on. Attention is the lever of experience. Where you place it shapes your perception. What you repeat in your mind forms your emotional environment. Let foolish words pass. Let cruel people speak. Let bad news move through you without taking root. Guard the mind like a fortress. Be selective with what is allowed to stay. This practice does not ignore what is real. It organizes it. It sorts what enters the mind and assigns it weight. The process begins by deciding what is worth attention. Some things deserve direct engagement. Others deserve distance. The ability to make that distinction is a form of mental strength. Without this control, your mind becomes cluttered with irrelevant thoughts, arguments, opinions, and assumptions that drain energy and obscure judgment. The untrained mind reacts. It attaches itself to every impression, every disturbance, every emotional hook. It follows what is loud rather than what is true. The trained mind separates what matters from what only appears urgent. It reduces the noise. It creates space for clarity. This space is where you regain control. The practice of guarding your attention becomes the habit of living with order. Train this through deliberate reflection. Do not rush through your day without reviewing what entered your mental space. Ask, what did I give my energy to? Which thoughts were useful? Which ideas pulled me off balance? Did I dwell on opinions that did not concern me? Did I entertain complaints that had no solution? Make this review a regular part of your life. Write down what you observe. Keep a simple journal. Track the moments when your peace was shaken. Track what you gave your attention to. Identify patterns. The goal is to become familiar with the gateways to your mind. You learn how to close them when needed. This is how you protect your mental stability. You cannot block every negative comment or event, but you can refuse to give them space in your mind. You can practice shifting your attention back to something constructive. You can observe harmful thoughts without accepting them. You can question judgments that come from emotion, not reason. This is how the Stoics approached mental discipline. Let the news pass through without obsession. Let gossip die without your participation. Let anxiety rise without feeding it. You are not a sponge, you are a gatekeeper. What you accept will shape what you become. What you dwell on will shape your energy, your speech, and your choices. Be deliberate with your focus. Keep it on what you control. Keep it on what builds strength. Keep it on what reflects your values. Do not let the external world program your internal state. Train the habit of guarding your mind and curating your thoughts. It is a daily act of strength, and it is the foundation of a stable, untouched life. Chapter 2. Anchor in Principles. A person without principles is moved by every emotion. They shift with every change in circumstance. Their actions are inconsistent. Their mind becomes unstable. They panic when challenged. They chase approval when uncertain. They collapse when conditions turn against them. Without a clear standard, they rely on impulse. They imitate the noise around them. The Stoic avoids this condition by anchoring in principle. This is the second way to stay untouched. You live by a code. You define your values. You act from those values, regardless of reward, punishment, or public reaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This short sentence reflects structure. It sets a clear internal rule. When faced with temptation, the Stoic returns to what is right. When exposed to flattery or insult, the Stoic returns to what is true. This is alignment. This is mental clarity. A person who lives from principle does not need to decide their values every day. Their choices follow the path they have already laid. Living by principle does not change with the situation. It is the same when alone as it is when surrounded by others. It is consistent under pressure and under ease. It creates stability because your actions no longer depend on how you feel in the moment. You do not wait to be told how to act. You have already chosen. You are not driven by reaction. You are guided by internal law. The Stoics did not argue to gain superiority. They did not shift their morals based on who they spoke with. They tested their judgments against reason. They adjusted their behavior based on what aligned with virtue. This gave them mental stability. Their values did not fluctuate. This created a clear sense of identity. They knew where they stood, and others knew what to expect from them. To apply this in your life, your principles must be known to you. Do not assume them. Write them down. Review them often. Ask direct questions. What virtues matter to me? What kind of person am I becoming through my daily actions? What lines will I not cross, no matter the benefit? These questions form a compass. They keep your posture steady. They keep your choices rooted. They prevent confusion when emotions try to influence your direction. Living by principle does not remove pressure from life. It organizes it. When you meet challenges, you meet them with structure. You respond with action that reflects your values. When people try to sway you, you return to your standards. This does not make life easier. It makes it stable. You do not waste energy on indecision. You act from a fixed base. That is strength. Distractions will arise. There will always be offers to deviate. Sometimes these offers come in the form of comfort, sometimes in the form of fear, sometimes in the form of social approval. Anchoring in principle gives you something to hold. You do not need to invent your identity each time the world changes. You remain who you are, in both success and failure, in both praise and rejection. That is how a Stoic stays untouched. The more clearly you define your values, the easier it becomes to live them. Repetition builds integrity. Reflection sharpens understanding. Consistency creates identity. When your actions match your beliefs, you gain strength. You do not need to chase validation. You do not need to avoid criticism. You stand where you have chosen to stand. That is the discipline of living by principle. That is the second way to remain firm in all conditions. Chapter 3. Train voluntary discomfort. The Stoics practiced hardship on purpose. They fasted to reduce attachment to appetite. They slept on hard surfaces to train detachment from luxury. They wore rough, simple clothes to cut dependence on comfort. They used voluntary hardship as a method of preparation. The third way to stay untouched is to train discomfort. The goal is to become familiar with difficulty so that fear loses influence. Seneca advised practicing poverty even when wealth is available. His reasoning was clear. If you face the experience directly, it no longer holds power through imagination. He wrote, "Set aside a number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition I feared?'" He was describing an exercise in mental fortitude. Fear of future difficulty weakens judgment. Practicing hardship breaks that fear. It turns a vague threat into a manageable condition. Avoiding discomfort weakens the capacity to respond. When ease becomes the norm, the mind grows less prepared for interruption. Comfort reduces the ability to hold effort under pressure. It narrows the range of what feels tolerable. As comfort increases, the threshold for challenge decreases. This leads to avoidance. Even minor obstacles feel large when the body and mind are not used to strain. Without consistent exposure to discomfort, tolerance fades. Frustration arrives faster. Delay becomes unbearable. Effort becomes something to escape. Discomfort is necessary to maintain strength. It develops internal resistance. When you regularly experience controlled forms of discomfort, you build the capacity to act in difficult conditions. You stop associating struggle with failure. You stop pulling away from things that are simply unpleasant. Voluntary discomfort builds the skill of functioning inside tension. It builds the habit of continuing even when results are delayed. These conditions train your mind to remain focused under stress. They prepare you to stay deliberate when emotion or fatigue appears. The goal of discomfort training is mental readiness. It prepares you for what life imposes. Physical pain, emotional loss, unexpected burden, these will come. A prepared person does not collapse. They respond with measured force. They remain calm under pressure. They take action based on reason, not reaction. Without training, these moments create panic or paralysis. With training, they become manageable. Discomfort training also organizes the mind. It teaches you to act without perfect conditions. You stop waiting for comfort. You act within the limits available. This removes hesitation. It sharpens decision-making. You stop flinching at uncertainty. You stop creating delay through doubt. You enter discomfort without collapse. You take action without guarantees. A person who trains discomfort becomes stable. They do not avoid strain. They step into it and work within it. They develop calm through repetition. They reduce their emotional response to stress. The body learns the experience. The mind becomes familiar with hardship. This familiarity removes surprise. You are no longer shocked by difficulty. You expected it. You have already moved through it by choice. You can now move through it by necessity. This kind of training also changes perception. A person who has practiced going without does not view scarcity as danger. They view it as manageable. They maintain clarity. A person who has delayed pleasure consistently builds restraint. They respond to temptation with reason. They are less controlled by impulse. They are less dependent on external comfort. This makes them harder to manipulate. It makes them more capable of staying firm in their values. Avoiding indulgence sharpens discipline. It gives structure to choice. It breaks the link between craving and action. This increases the ability to stay aligned. When temporary pleasure threatens long-term direction, the trained person stays fixed. they have already built the muscle. This is a foundation of freedom. Discipline under strain is a core feature of strength. It does not appear automatically. It is developed through regular voluntary challenge. This practice also enhances gratitude. When you deliberately remove comfort, you begin to recognize its actual value. You no longer treat food, rest, quiet, or safety as default conditions. You start to view them as privileges that support your function. A simple meal becomes a gift. A warm room becomes a reminder of stability. You become less entitled to outcomes and more attentive to conditions. This change in awareness reduces complaints. It shifts your focus from what is lacking to what is already present. You stop thinking in terms of deprivation and begin observing presence with accuracy. Comfort, when always available, loses meaning. When it is removed by choice and then returned, it becomes visible again. You notice warmth. You taste food more fully. You listen to silence as a form of space. Your expectations become grounded. You no longer assume ease as the default. You operate with awareness that each element of comfort could be removed. That awareness makes you less reactive. It gives you a more balanced view of daily life. It limits your dissatisfaction. This reduction in complaint has long-term effects. It conserves energy. It preserves attention. You are not constantly comparing your situation to something ideal. You are not absorbed in wants that have no end. You start to see how much is already enough. This creates emotional balance. It improves judgment. Gratitude becomes a stabilizer. It prevents the mind from spiraling into frustration when ease is interrupted. To implement this in practical form, start by selecting discomforts that are controlled and sustainable. Do not force extremes. Choose routines that remove ease in small increments. Walk long distances instead of choosing shortcuts. Choose meals that are plain but nourishing. Delay your response to craving. Turn off entertainment and sit without input. Speak with intention and remain quiet when it is unnecessary to comment. Sleep on harder surfaces from time to time. Lower the temperature in your space. Face the absence of stimulation. These are not punishments. They are methods. They are designed to reveal patterns. They uncover areas where comfort has become dependence. They show what you seek out when you feel bored, restless, anxious, or uncertain. They expose what your mind considers necessary. When you take something away, you learn how tightly you were holding it. These methods allow you to pause. They give space between stimulus and response. This space is where discipline can be applied. You learn to act from clarity rather than impulse. Begin with one discomfort per week. Make it small, deliberate, and measurable. Track your reaction. Write down your initial resistance. Notice what thoughts arise when you face the discomfort. Observe your cravings. Identify where your mind tries to justify quitting. Record your physical sensations. Note when discomfort becomes more tolerable. These observations are valuable. They reveal your emotional defaults. They show your tolerance window. They help you understand how you react under pressure. Discomfort becomes useful when tracked with attention. Without tracking, it becomes noise. With tracking, it becomes data. This data shows you your patterns. You learn how often you reach for ease without thought. You see where your discomfort thresholds are low. You recognize which triggers create agitation. These insights make future training more specific. They help you apply the right kind of resistance. Precision replaces guesswork. Discipline becomes guided by real feedback. As this becomes a weekly rhythm, your structure grows stronger. Repetition stabilizes behavior. The practice becomes integrated. Discomfort no longer signals alarm. It becomes part of your conditioning. Your responses stop depending on convenience. You function through obstacles with less friction. You stop requiring ideal conditions to move forward. Your posture shifts. You become less reactive to minor disturbances. You stop exaggerating inconvenience. You continue despite friction. Strength begins to feel natural. You stop seeing challenge as interruption. You start seeing it as part of your framework. This creates adaptability. It gives you a steady mind across changing environments. Your nervous system gradually calibrates. The body builds capacity through regular exposure. It reduces the stress response. Hunger, noise, fatigue, and tension no longer control your reactions. The mind becomes more neutral. It is no longer pulled into every discomfort. You act with a level head. Your pace stays consistent. Your voice remains measured. The habit of staying calm becomes easier to maintain. Discomfort becomes your field of training. It becomes a signal for awareness. When it appears, you lean into it with structure. You no longer assume something is wrong. You use it to focus. You respond with posture. You develop a habit of holding your ground. You do not seek pain. You seek composure. You do not use discomfort to suffer. You use it to measure and build. When life imposes hardship, you are not surprised. You have practiced the state. You have built a mind that does not resist strain with panic. You adjust without losing your place. You move through it with deliberate steps. You do not need reassurance. You do not need escape. You continue. You endure with judgment and calm. This makes your actions reliable. This gives your presence weight. This training removes the illusion that peace requires comfort. Peace becomes something you carry. You are no longer chasing a quiet moment. You have created a quiet posture. It stays with you through activity, noise, tension, and interruption. This is a form of freedom. It cannot be taken from you. It does not depend on external control. It depends on your preparation. While others wait for the world to calm down, you are already functioning inside the storm. While others wait for energy, you have built it. While others seek ease, you move through resistance with order. This creates an internal advantage. It gives you the ability to take action when others hesitate. It allows you to face pressure without collapse. You become a point of stability. This is the strength that grows from disciplined exposure. The ability to endure difficulty without collapse is not based on talent. It is built through repeated confrontation with what is uncomfortable. Each deliberate act of voluntary discomfort builds control. Each session spent enduring hunger, cold, silence, or fatigue builds structure. You do not wait for hardship to appear randomly. You invite manageable hardship into your routine and meet it with focus. This process increases your capacity to handle conditions that are not ideal. Voluntary discomfort brings clarity to your limits. It teaches you that fear often appears before actual pain. When you move through discomfort without rushing to escape it, you gather proof of your resilience. This proof stays with you. It reminds you that strain does not need to break your stability. It reveals that your body can hold more than your first thought suggests. It proves that your mind can remain clear in pressure. These experiences are earned. They are stored as silent strength. This is the reward of discomfort. It removes illusion and replaces it with direct knowledge. The person who practices these methods becomes steady. They do not require constant reassurance. They do not need perfect conditions to think or act clearly. Their internal structure remains present in failure and in progress. They have removed the habit of retreat. They do not look for the easiest exit. They have built an ability to stand still, observe, and respond without emotional disruption. This steadiness cannot be borrowed. It must be trained. Self-denial is part of the method. Saying no to comfort when it is available teaches you control. Holding silence when you want to speak builds patience. Moving forward through resistance trains willpower. These practices reduce the demand for ease. They teach the mind to function in effort without protest. The result is a deep kind of stillness. You are not forced into stillness by pressure. You move into it through awareness. That stillness becomes your center. Daily exposure sharpens this process. When you make discomfort regular, it no longer feels foreign. When you repeat it, you remove the edge of surprise. You begin to see difficulty as a form of feedback, not threat. It becomes something to observe, adjust to, and move through. This reduces emotional noise. It strengthens attention. You are no longer pulled by every sensation. You act based on what you decide, not what you feel in the moment. This also influences how others experience you. When you are steady in discomfort, others recognize it. They sense that your peace is not based on the situation. They rely on your presence. They trust your reaction. You stop being a source of emotional volatility. You become a person who absorbs pressure without transmitting it. This builds leadership. It creates respect. It forms reliability. You train the body to stay active while tired. You train the mind to stay clear while stressed. You shape your judgment under weight. These are not dramatic acts. They are small, repeated steps done with precision. The purpose is not to harm yourself. The purpose is to sharpen your edge. You do not wish for ease. You train for readiness. That readiness reduces panic, delays, and error when difficulty arrives without warning. Through this discipline, peace becomes internal. It is no longer something you pursue through comfort. It is something you build through strength. That peace travels with you. It exists in discomfort, confusion, loss, and effort. It remains available because you have rehearsed it. You have protected it through training. You have shaped your daily rhythm around preserving it. This is how the Stoic remains untouched. The world still shifts, pressure still arrives, emotions still stir, but the core remains steady. You do not escape life. You face it with calm and action. You reduce chaos by building order in yourself. You function with less need and more awareness. You train the body to obey. You train the mind to lead. You meet adversity with presence. This is the strength that does not shout. It holds, it watches, it responds, it does not collapse, it does not retreat, it does not demand ease, it moves forward. That is the third way. That is how preparation becomes resilience. That is how structure becomes freedom. That is how you become untouched. Chapter 4. Strengthen the discipline of assent. The fourth way to stay untouched is to train how you respond to your impressions. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent. It is the act of deciding whether to accept or reject the thoughts that appear in your mind. Every opinion, every judgment, every mental story begins as an impression. These impressions are not always true. They are not always useful. Some arrive from emotion, others from habit. The Stoic does not grant them control by default. The Stoic inspects them. Epictetus taught that impressions arrive uninvited, but assent is a choice. You may feel fear, anger, or desire. That feeling is not the problem. The problem begins when you accept the feeling as truth and act on it without examination. When you give assent, you give authority. You allow a temporary sensation to shape your belief or action. This weakens judgment and opens the mind to error. Training assent requires daily practice. Begin by noticing when thoughts arise automatically. Pause before agreeing with them. Ask, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this under my control? Thoughts that fail this test can be dismissed. They do not need to be fought. They do not need to be entertained. They can simply be left alone. This builds separation between what you feel and what you believe. Most people live in reaction. They accept every thought as valid and act on it without testing its truth. When something disturbs them, they follow the feeling. When a judgment forms, they treat it as fact. This pattern creates instability. Each emotion becomes a command. Each mood becomes a reason for action. This weakens clarity and disturbs consistency. It becomes difficult to make decisions based on values when every impulse is treated as urgent. The Stoic builds a layer between stimulus and response. This gap is where reflection occurs. It gives space for reason to operate. Without that space, everything is automatic. You move from impression to action without pause. In that pause, the Stoic inserts discipline. They do not act immediately. They observe. They apply standards. They ask if the impression deserves assent. This small step protects judgment. It prevents errors that begin in unchecked reaction. This space is not passive. It is a trained condition. The Stoic develops it through repetition. Each time a thought appears, they examine it. Each time an emotion rises, they wait before acting. They do not assume the first signal is the full truth. They test it. They let reason decide if the impression aligns with nature, with virtue, and with their chosen role. This process builds mental structure. The mind becomes organized. The emotions lose the power to steer behavior without permission. This discipline also protects emotional energy. When impressions are filtered, energy is conserved. The mind no longer chases every fear or fantasy. It does not rush into imagined threats. It does not build stories around insult, status, or approval. The Stoic learns to stay grounded in what is physically present and verifiable. This limits exaggeration. It prevents the mind from creating burdens that do not exist. It builds stability. By reducing reaction, the Stoic stays available for reasoned response. They are not scattered by every shift in their internal world. They do not need to suppress emotion. They study it. They use it as data. They then decide if the data leads to a meaningful action. This balance maintains clarity. It creates a mind that is responsive without being reactive. To sharpen this practice, record thoughts that interrupt peace. Review them. Identify the exact moment where judgment replaced observation. Most emotional disturbance begins when an assumption is accepted as true. Find the chain: impression, belief, action. Study where you gave consent. That is where you can begin to apply control. You do not need to change the world. You need to change what you allow into your reasoning. Train yourself to see the difference between what appears and what is. An insult appears to be an attack. It may also be a projection of the speaker's distress. A delay appears to be a threat to your plans. It may also be an opportunity to slow down and observe. Assent determines the meaning. The mind shapes the story. The Stoic learns to control the story by deciding where attention flows. The goal is not to eliminate emotion. Emotions are part of human life. The Stoic goal is to prevent emotion from becoming the decision maker. You maintain leadership of your own mind. You direct thought rather than following it. This is a daily exercise. It becomes stronger with attention and repetition. This is the foundation of rational control. You do not manage every thought that appears, but you manage what stays. You do not shape what others say or do, but you shape the meaning you assign to their actions. This is how a Stoic remains steady in pressure, firm in noise, and clear in uncertainty. The mind remains structured. It follows reason. That is the fourth way to stay untouched. Chapter 5. Let go of what you cannot control. The fifth way to stay untouched is to practice the constant separation between what is yours and what is not. The Stoics placed this distinction at the center of their thinking. Your thoughts, actions, and intentions are your responsibility. The opinions, behaviors, and outcomes shaped by others are not. Recognizing this difference is a form of clarity. It stops you from trying to control what lies outside your influence. It trains you to invest your energy where it has real effect. Epictetus wrote, "Some things are up to us and some are not. This is a simple rule. It is also a complete guide to peace. If you spend your energy on things you cannot control, you create exhaustion. You build your identity on things you cannot direct. This leaves you exposed. The Stoic focuses attention only on what can be shaped by reason and effort. That focus allows for control of the inner world. It gives structure to thought and stability to response. Most emotional disturbance begins when a person demands control where they have none. They want others to act a certain way. They want the outcome to match their plan. They want the world to obey their timeline. When these things fail, as they often will, the person feels frustrated, angry, or afraid. These reactions come from misplaced effort. The Stoic avoids this trap by accepting that external events are governed by causes beyond the self. They let go of what belongs to others. This protects emotional energy and improves clarity. This discipline is not passive. It does not mean doing nothing. It means focusing all energy on what is directly actionable. You direct your mind. You align your actions. You maintain your values regardless of the behavior of others. You correct your own course instead of judging the path of someone else. You respond to circumstances with principle, even when the circumstances do not change. This choice builds consistency. It supports self-respect. It develops a sense of accountability that does not rely on outcome. It turns daily decisions into demonstrations of character. When your focus is fixed on what you can influence, your preparation, your attitude, your conduct, you begin to live with intention. This clarity strengthens self-trust. You no longer wait for approval to act with conviction. You become someone who responds with integrity, regardless of external validation. Letting go of what you cannot control also improves relationships. You stop needing others to validate you. You no longer rely on agreement to feel confident. You stop trying to shape how others think, speak, or behave. You do not adjust your values to gain approval. Instead, you focus on speaking clearly and acting consistently. You choose words that reflect your values rather than attempting to avoid disapproval. You engage with others from a position of stability rather than persuasion. This builds mutual respect and prevents emotional dependence. You stop measuring your actions by how others respond to them. You stop assigning personal meaning to unpredictable reactions. If someone praises you, you receive it without attachment. If someone criticizes you, you assess the content rather than defend your ego. This kind of detachment brings clarity. It allows you to communicate with precision. It also creates internal freedom. You are no longer pulled into the emotional tides of others. You remain steady. You do not try to control their reactions or feelings. You create space for boundaries. You allow others their choices while remaining committed to your own standards. This posture creates stronger interactions. You listen without the need to correct. You speak without the need to be accepted. You stay grounded even when others shift. This gives your presence weight. People recognize that you are not easily swayed. You become a reliable figure in both calm and conflict. You become someone who others can trust, not because you agree with them, but because you are clear about where you stand. To apply this principle, begin with small daily observations. Ask, did I try to control what was not mine? Did I become upset about someone else's behavior? Did I place too much importance on outcome and ignore process? Did I become overly attached to how I was perceived? These questions will expose areas where your energy is misdirected. Once you see the pattern, you can correct it. You begin to place more attention on what is directly shaped by your effort and character. You begin to reclaim your focus. This awareness reduces anxiety. It stops the constant evaluation of what others may think or feel. It ends the inner debate about what should have happened. It reduces the emotional noise created by comparison, expectation, and assumption. You stop rehearsing conversations that never occurred. You stop explaining yourself to imagined critics. This shift in attention removes layers of unnecessary mental activity. It frees your mind from the weight of speculation. It brings your focus back to your task, your role, your intention. You become less concerned with managing perception and more committed to behaving with reason. When your attention is directed to what you can control, you reduce the amount of time spent in mental conflict. You do not replay events in search of approval. You do not keep adjusting your words to match imagined reactions. This allows your energy to settle. It restores the ability to act clearly and without hesitation. You begin to view uncertainty as part of the structure of life rather than something to resist. You move forward with calm, knowing that your part is enough. You can practice this awareness in many settings. During conversations, you can observe when your mind starts to anticipate rejection or praise. You can stop yourself from trying to control the impression you make. In moments of conflict, you can slow your breath and speak without urgency. If someone interrupts you, you cannot control their tone or intent. You can still pause, remain calm, and decide what deserves a reply. You do not need to match their energy. You remain steady and deliberate. In work tasks, you cannot control every variable. Plans will shift, deadlines will change, others may fail to meet expectations. You can still act with diligence. You can still carry yourself with discipline. You can accept setbacks without letting them shape your identity. You can maintain consistency through changing conditions. If a plan collapses, your effort does not collapse with it. You reset, you reassess, and you continue. If plans change without warning, you can adapt without complaint. You can observe the shift and make new decisions. You can accept the unexpected as part of the process. This shows where your attention is placed. It reveals whether you are focused on external outcomes or internal control. If you become disoriented by change, your attachment has been misplaced. If you remain clear, your attention has been trained. These are examples of active detachment. They are not forms of retreat. They are expressions of control over focus and reaction. They help reduce wasted motion. They reduce emotional volatility. They allow you to stay connected to reality without losing clarity. They help you manage your energy across long periods of effort. They teach you to continue even when emotion tries to interrupt discipline. These practices remove the urge to explain yourself in excess. They reduce the need to fix others' opinions. They eliminate the habit of anticipating approval before every action. You begin to operate from principles, not from social pressure. You do not abandon communication, you refine it. You become more concise, more thoughtful, and more focused on truth. Practice detachment from results. Place more attention on preparation. Examine how you begin your tasks. Build strength in the process itself. Make your process the standard you measure. Let the result be what it will. Direct your focus toward alignment, not outcome. Before you speak, consider your aim. Deliver your words with calm and clarity. Maintain your posture when challenged. Breathe fully. Control your volume. Speak to inform, not to impress. When you commit to this structure, results become secondary. They are observed, not worshipped. You take note of what unfolds, but your focus returns to how you showed up. You judge yourself by your intention, not by how others receive it. This creates inner steadiness. You can face rejection without collapse. You can face praise without dependency. You move forward with the same rhythm, regardless of what follows. The goal is to understand the boundary between effort and result. You direct what belongs to you. You release what does not. You own your voice. You do not own how it is heard. You own your effort. You do not own how it is used. This distinction allows your actions to become clean. They are no longer burdened by fear or craving. They are rooted in responsibility, not outcome. This mental shift builds a durable form of power. It gives you structure under pressure. It allows you to stay centered in chaos. You no longer shift with conditions. You remain in command of yourself. Your thinking stays organized. Your emotions stay contained. Your behavior reflects your code, not your surroundings. This is how the Stoic remains untouched. External events may shake the lives of many, but the Stoic understands that clarity is internal. Your direction comes from what you choose to live by, not what happens around you. Principles do not bend with each disruption. They remain firm, providing a compass in the shifting conditions of daily life. When you live from that internal compass, you stop reacting to the mood of the crowd, the comments of critics, or the pressure of the unknown. The judgments of others may rise and fall, but your direction stays fixed. You stop assigning personal value to opinions that do not align with your code. You stop needing validation to act with purpose. The Stoic trains this mindset to function with consistency, regardless of external evaluation. In this clarity, every decision becomes grounded in values rather than popularity. Every action reflects your chosen character, not the influence of approval or rejection. Control is not the ability to force outcomes. It is the ability to guide your actions with stability and discipline, even when outcomes remain uncertain. It is the strength to remain in command of your behavior when things do not go your way. You cannot direct every circumstance, but you can always direct your attention, your posture, and your speech. That is the reach of your control. It is enough. The one who can act with purpose in uncertain conditions becomes a stable force. Their actions bring calm into disorder. Their presence restores structure where panic spreads. They speak with weight. They move without wasting effort. They do not collapse under pressure. They continue with clarity because they have trained their mind to separate effort from outcome. Their peace is not borrowed from conditions. It is built from within through practice and understanding. This is how you remain intact in noise, in disorder, in disappointment. You do not retreat from life. You engage with it from a position of grounded self-leadership. Your strength is quiet. It is patient. It is deliberate. It is held in the decisions you repeat, in the way you walk through setbacks, and in the steadiness of your thinking when others become scattered. This is the fifth way to stay untouched. Chapter 6. Train the will to endure. The sixth way to stay untouched is to develop endurance as a habit. Endurance is not an emergency response. It is a practiced state of resilience. The Stoics viewed endurance as controlled strength applied during strain. It is the decision to remain guided by reason when discomfort sets in. Endurance is the ability to carry your values through pain, through delay, through disorder, and to stay committed. It means continuing action when results are uncertain and when ease has disappeared. It is the refusal to let difficulty reset your direction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." These were not the words of a detached philosopher. They were written by a Roman emperor dealing with war, illness, personal loss, and betrayal. His leadership was forged in adversity. He did not demand ease before acting with strength. His ability to endure came from a mind prepared to face pressure. He developed the capacity to operate while being tested. He did not treat hardship as a reason to abandon duty. He remained active within it. That posture is what builds endurance. Endurance begins with accepting the structure of life. Fatigue will appear, plans will fail, people will misjudge, delay will disrupt momentum, resistance will challenge your intention. These are not mistakes, they are part of the process. The Stoic accepts that discomfort exists. This acceptance creates mental space. You no longer spend energy wishing for better conditions. You focus your effort on carrying out the task in the conditions that exist. The Stoic trains to stay operational across conditions. They do not rely on ease to be functional. They hold form when energy is low. They speak with reason when provoked. They act with consistency when others pause. This form of endurance makes a person useful in crisis. It keeps judgment clear. It strengthens reputation. It allows for long-term contribution. To build this endurance, you must shape your days with effort as the standard. Do not depend on inspiration. Depend on structure. Begin with simple rules. Wake early. Finish what you start. Hold your word. Build routines that test consistency. Show up when it is inconvenient. Work through low energy. Complete actions that feel tedious. Track what you avoid and choose to face it. Endurance grows by meeting the friction you often escape. You must hold a standard even when ease is available. You must learn to complete tasks without waiting for energy to feel right. Posture must be maintained when you feel tired or discouraged. Endurance is a choice made during difficulty. It is not based on mood. It is not reactive. It is repeated through deliberate action. You train it by acting without negotiation. You follow through without drama. Repetition makes the posture permanent. The strength of the will grows through exposure to pressure. Carry your routine into discomfort. Complete your tasks when doubt enters. Do what is necessary even when the reward is delayed. Push through when your instinct says stop. This practice is the core of Stoic will. It builds steadiness. The more you hold form when tested, the more reliable you become. The Stoic also trains perspective. You learn to observe pain with accuracy. You remove exaggeration. You see discomfort clearly without turning it into tragedy. You stop attaching dramatic labels to effort. A hard task is not suffering. A delay is not ruin. You correct your internal language. You develop a voice that speaks facts, not panic. This change in perception reduces complaint and increases control. You carry your values into struggle. This is where character is tested and refined. It is easy to act in agreement with principle during peace. That does not require force. That does not require mental tension. The true test appears when peace disappears. The challenge is to maintain your values in the presence of frustration, fatigue, and resistance. When you remain measured under stress, you train those principles into habit. Restraint becomes natural. Clarity becomes stable. Discipline becomes your normal response to pressure. These traits are no longer conditional. They take root and remain active across situations. This is how the mind becomes unshakable. This is how peace becomes usable under pressure, not just in its absence. Carrying values into tension builds consistency across your actions. You no longer behave one way in calm and another in adversity. You stay aligned. Your words stay clean. Your tone stays steady. You follow the same standards regardless of who is watching or what is happening. This is the mark of a reliable character. It shows that your values are not theoretical, they are operational. You act on them when tested. Endurance protects consistency. It gives you the ability to finish what you begin. It ensures that your structure is not broken by feelings. It prevents you from abandoning tasks because of doubt. It holds you to your schedule when motivation is low. It lets you keep promises without constant reinforcement. This steadiness removes the need for drama or external force. You do not depend on momentum. You continue with order. You return to your plan without resistance. You keep your agreements. You operate based on decisions, not on emotional swings. Consistency allows you to build credibility. It earns trust. Others know they can rely on you to show up, complete work, speak clearly, and carry responsibility. Your habits create stability around you. People begin to depend on your presence and your conduct. You are seen as a person who finishes what they start, even in difficulty. This increases your influence. It gives you a quiet authority. The person who trains endurance becomes a structure for others. Their posture gives others balance. Their consistency gives others space to function. Their calm provides an anchor during emotional chaos. When others retreat, they stay present. When others panic, they act deliberately. When others complain, they adjust. This presence becomes rare. It is the result of mental and physical training. It cannot be borrowed. It must be built. The usefulness of endurance appears in crisis. The dependable person is not faster or louder. They are stable. They remain in position when pressure rises. They do not act out. They hold structure when others break form. This quality does not show in comfort. It appears when plans collapse or when the load increases. The Stoic who has trained for this becomes essential. They support others without absorbing their panic. They maintain their identity when the environment destabilizes. Endurance does not remove the effort. It gives you the strength to carry it forward. It does not make the delay shorter. It helps you remain functional through it. You stop assigning negative meaning to every obstacle. You stop building mental resistance around hard work. You normalize it. You stop asking if the process should be easier. You begin asking how to stay consistent within it. This changes how you experience difficulty. It becomes a field of practice rather than a wall. You act without the demand for immediate results. You move with a long view. You do not need progress to be visible to remain committed. You trust the process because you shaped it. You designed your system with difficulty in mind. You follow your structure with commitment. This removes hesitation. It reduces doubt. It gives your movements rhythm and your thoughts precision. This is where strength becomes identity. You no longer try to convince yourself to continue. You continue because that is who you are. The effort is part of your rhythm. The difficulty is part of your process. You stop trying to exit discomfort. You move through it. Your will becomes stable. Your energy becomes organized. Your day becomes directed. This is the sixth way to stay untouched. You train the will by using it every day. You condition the body by carrying effort without excuse. You prepare the mind by building clarity under friction. You align thought, word, and behavior. You remove dependence on ease. You keep your course steady. You reset when interrupted. You build from your own foundation. This posture protects your strength. It stops collapse. It lets you remain composed when others disorganize. It holds your words in precision. It gives weight to your actions. You move without needing rescue. You complete your role even when praise is absent. You stay composed when recognition is delayed. You respond to pressure with stability. You act through difficulty without changing your tone. You continue when others hesitate. You endure when others withdraw. You act when others wait for ideal timing. You remain yourself under stress. That is endurance. That is the final discipline. That is how the Stoic remains untouched.